Good evening, viewers. Welcome to Issues at Hand here at WBS TV. Your host, Peter Chivazo. We're joining a particularly interesting issue. It is an issue of land. It is an issue of displacement. It is an issue of development. It is a question of measuring. You have two elements on the table, and each one of them is competing with the other. On what? We are talking particularly Kasokoso, Banda. I think the other one goes almost to Boyogere. There's been a tug and push around this area. It is national housing. Does the land belong to National Housing and Construction, now company, formerly corporation? Does it belong to, was it public land that belonged to the government of Uganda, or is it land that belongs, is it part of the Royal Mile of Buganda, as it were, either the private estate of the Kabaka of Buganda or part of the estates that are owned by the kingdom? The people on the ground say they were granted the lease to live here by the Kingdom of Buganda, by specifically the Kabaka of Buganda. National Housing says, we bought this property. This evening with me in the studio, I have a gentleman and lady from National Housing. Both of them with a grand project in the area. If you ask, does the grand project have a heart for the people in the area? Good evening.
Good evening.
David?
Yes, please.
David Wanangwe is a projects manager in National Housing.
Yes.
And
Amon Betty Bernardine is Information Management Officer, National Housing.
Right. I have pictures from Kasokoso, I think it is called. If you looked at it from an aerial view, it looks pretty nice. Today, David and Amon, I drove round after when I was setting up for the show. I drove around and looked at it. A friend of mine said, "Oh, this must go. It's really a nice to the city." I turned and said, "Okay, it must go." Do you realize that those houses are actually, each of them, 7 or 10 or so many human beings? Not some mad and watto and tin, as my producer gives us those pictures. So, David,
yes.
One, does National Housing have a heart for these people? Do you realize that actually this ISO in the city is actually human beings?
Thank you, Mr. Kivazo. Good evening, viewers. I'll go straight to your question. National Housing indeed recognizes that, like you said, these are human beings on this land. By recognizing this, we follow it up with the approach that we're taking in implementing the project that we're here to sensitize the public about. It's a project that is intended first and foremost as a slum redevelopment project. It's a project that is benchmarking on various similar projects that have been done in different parts of the world, in Uganda as well, that puts emphasis on people who are on ground, that does not seek to evict, but rather to improve conditions on the ground, have the residents be the first priority that are benefiting from the eventual project, and at the end of the day, we seek to create a viable community on this land, like our mandate of providing planned housing in a built environment. We seek to improve the conditions in Kireke. Our first priority is the current residents on the ground, and that's why we're considering that the people who are on the ground will be the first people to benefit from this project.
David, how many people are we talking about? How many families are we talking about? Have you done your survey? Do you have your figures?
Preliminary whatever visits to the ground reveal that there are about 10,000 households, which if you approximate maybe on an average of three occupants per home,
it could be 7.
Could be 7. But so we're looking at a number between 30,000 and upwards.
70,000 people.
Yes, but I must add this, that one of the phases of
because that is the more decent unoccupied section of this area. I hope that we have even the other pictures of what easily looks like one that people would say, oh, tear it away. Yes?
Yes. I must add that we intend, as one of the first steps, once we before we even start any construction, to do what they call a slum profiling. It's a kind of mini census. Find out the people you're planning for, because we have this information. It's preliminary information, but we want to get onto the ground. Some of the information we're already gathering for registration of the current residents, for the planning stage to proceed, and know how many people we are planning for, and therefore how many houses.
Let me ask, because if we assume that we have about 30,000 households in this area,
yes,
actually, yes, this is part of the area. If we have about 30,000 households in this area,
yes,
that could triple in number of people there. They could go to 90,000, they could be 70,000, or they could be fewer than that.
Yes.
Right. How many houses is National Housing targeting to put up in this particular area? And what acreage of land are we dealing with?
Thank you. I'll start maybe from the acreage of land. National Housing owns a total of 292 acres in this area. And we are speaking of land that stretches between the road from Chinawataka that continues to Kireke. Our boundaries basically start from right where VCCU is, part of the Kireke Material Laboratory and the Ministry of Works. And then on the upper side we neighbor the SDA church. And then on the lower side we stretch along that swamp that goes all the way around up to the Resort Beach Hotel, and then we go all the way up along that road that again connects to standard signs for people who know the area. Then still on the upper side we neighbor the King's Palace, the Kireke Palace. You asked about the number.
That is about 292
acres.
Yes. Again, from whom did you buy this land? Because that is a contested one. When you talk to the community, and I had opportunity to talk to several people, they say this land never belonged to National Housing at any one time.
Well, good enough to have some documentation here. We bought this land from Kireke Limited. Initially it was a lease of 2 parcels
Who
of
is
land.
Kireke?
It was a private owner. That land had a private owner under the names of Kireke Estates Limited. And there are 2 parcels of land. One, initially it was a lease. One was for 49 years, another one was for 99 years. Then, due to our good relationship with them, we did agree at some point, and instead of leasing to us, they sold to us. So we have had all these allegations of people saying that this is Kabaka's land, and many other stories.
When did National Housing acquire this land?
Well, David will explain that, but before even we go to that, let me first clear this part of the land being for the Kabaka. There have been those rumors, and right here with us we do have documentary evidence. This is the letter that came from Buganda Land Board dismissing those claims that that land actually does not belong to the Kabaka. So we actually got it from Kireke Estates Limited, and now it belongs to National Housing.
When did you acquire this land?
We acquired this land in two stages. The first acquisition was 250 acres, a lease signed in